So I got my February edition of the UFT membership magazine. I like to call it my monthly dose of union propaganda. Ideally, I think that teachers should have a large voice in what's going on around the schools. Crazy. We just spent all this money redeveloping these tests and redoing this. And all anybody's ever been saying is we're over testing, and so what's the state? Oh, no problem, we'll remake you standards. I truly question what the union is doing with all that money and power on a political level. Hello, all those beautiful faces. How we doing? Stephanie checking in with another episode of Class Disruption, disrupting the status quo of education. And before we get into it, if you enjoy this content, make sure you smash that like button and that you click the subscribe button so that you can get notified every single time I drop a video, which is once a week. And of course, I want to know what you're thinking. Leave your thoughts in those comments down below, because one of the best ways as educators that we can disrupt that status quo is by having substantive discussions on the internet, social media, and share this video with other educators so we can spread that disruption worldwide. All right, and it's February, so that means it's Black History Month. So before we get into today's video, I just want to give a big shout out to one of the dopest in the game, Shivy, a Black male educator from Atlanta, giving an amazing experience to his students. And the way that I found him was about a little over a month ago on IG, and he was doing this thing with them called Teacher Talk Tuesday. And so what that is every Tuesday he comes up with a topic and creates an open-ended sentence that people have to complete, and he'll go around his school to other students, other teachers, other people around the building, and have them give their perspective, and then he puts it all together on a video and shares it with the world. And I just thought this was such a dope way to kind of create a culture and a cohesion among the students and the staff, and meaningful conversations. And so here, let's check out one of his video.
Hey Christian, what day is it?
Today is Teacher Talk Tuesday.
Yay!
Teacher Talk Tuesday.
My favorite part of 2019 was...
Teacher Talk Tuesday.
Okay.
Over the summer when I did like multiple photo shoots and I had a fashion show.
Okay.
When me and my organization had went to a recreational homeless shelter and was playing with the...
All right, so you see what he's doing, and I just thought this was such a cool idea, and I was like, I'm doing this with my students. And so starting 2 weeks ago, I did my own version of Teacher Talk Tuesday. Play a little bit in the beginning.
Hello, all those beautiful faces.
How we doing on this Tuesday? And it's Tuesday, so you know what that means, right, Caleb?
It's Teacher Talk Tuesday.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. Teacher Talk Tuesday. Finish this sentence. My students know I have love for their culture when
When they find out that I grew up in the same areas that they grew up in, you understand, like just...
All right, so you can see I took that same format. Yeah, I used my son as well in there. And I went around, talked to students and teachers, and had them finish the sentence. And since it's Black History Month, we're doing a special Black History Month topics. And so just a big shout out to Shivy for doing awesome things, spreading the love all over. And I appreciate the love for me picking up this and doing it with my students. So I highly encourage you guys, do your own Teacher Talk Tuesday. Share the video with Shivy, and we'll get this thing rocking, a movement all over the country. And also, he has some dope gear. So, I had to get me some of that. Got Black History in the Making shirt. And he has these cool pins. So, try to get them close. Black History in the Making one. Right? I'll put a thing actually right up here so you guys could see some of his dope clothes that he has. Right now, he's got a sale going on for Black History Month. I got the links in the description down below. So go show him some love. Go support him. I'm doing a giveaway with my students, and I gave some to some special Black people making history every single day in my life. And so, yeah, just go show him love. Do your own Teacher Talk Tuesday, and let's get into this video, y'all. So I got my February edition of the UFT membership magazine. I like to call it my monthly dose of union propaganda. But no, all jokes aside, I do enjoy getting this. I think it is important for our union to create that cohesion, to let us know what's going on around the district. They have some informative things in there. And really, ideally, I think that teachers should have a large voice in what's going on around the schools. And I would love to see every school share power between three positions or three groups. So you would have an executive who's in charge of the business side of things. You would have the person who's in charge of curriculum and instruction. And then you would have that group of teachers to really bring in that teacher perspective. And then they can coordinate across the district with representatives to really make sure that the teacher voice is being heard, because it's us who has the power. We're in those classrooms every single day. So I think a union is so important, and this magazine really does give a good view into what other teachers are doing across the district and some cool things they're doing in their classroom. It gives me ideas, and they often inform me of things that in that day-to-day teacher life get pushed to the back of my head, like doing taxes. They had a great thing in there about how you can deduct your union dues and how you can take a $250 deduction for school supplies and things that you provide for your classroom. They had things in there about our teacher rights surrounding lesson plans and just when they're hosting different workshops. So I think that there's some really important things that come out of this magazine, but then there's like one or two things that, and sometimes it's more depending on the theme of the magazine, that make me question what the union is really doing with all that power and that money that we give them. They claim to be this non-political organization, and yet I'm constantly seeing political things creep in there or just questionable initiatives. And I'm like, well, there's a lot of money behind this, but how is it really impacting me and helping me and supporting me and my students on a daily basis in the classroom? And I didn't have to get too far into this magazine to get that. Right away they hit me with the testing and promotion. I'm like, ugh, testing season. And so I did look at that a little bit, but what really caught my eye was this one right here. UFT working to get curriculum for all. And what really stuck out to me was the curriculum for all. It kind of sounds like equity for all. And I'm like, okay, so that means that it must need a lot of money and a lot of power if we're getting it for everyone. And it sounds good. It really does. So I pulled up the article on here. Let's check it out. And as we go through it, I'll of course let you know what my opinion is. And I've actually shared some of this stuff on Instagram already, so I'm going to post some of those comments up too. So let's check it out. All right, so I got the article pulled up right here. UFT working to get curriculum for all. UFT President Michael Mulgrew announced at a delegate assembly on January 15 that the union is working to ensure that all New York City schools have curriculum aligned to the state's next generation learning standards for math and English language arts. And then I was just like, whoa. All right, I was kind of excited to hear about like the curriculum. It would be nice as a teacher, I think, to have more kind of things that I don't have to go out and develop from scratch or from, scrolling on the internet to put things together or reaching out to my network and saying, hey, what did you do for this? Those things can be time consuming. But now I'm hearing new standards, and I thought we were on Common Core. When did we get these new standards? I haven't heard about this. And so I just stopped right there. And I was like, let's check out what these new standards are. So boom, New York State Education Department website. And we've got the next generation learning standards. That's a nice ring to it, right? Sounds good. Next generation. I mean, who could not want that? It's better than Common Core, right? So it says the Board of Regents adopted a newly revised English language arts and mathematic learning standards on September 11, 2017. So we're in 2020. This was done in 2017. That's 3 years ago. I haven't heard of this. Weird. It's like it's not like I haven't been here. I've been listening. So the new standards have been a result of over 2 years of collaborative work. Nobody tried to collaborate with me. To ensure New York State has the best learning standards for our students. Over 130 educators and parents work together to make recommendations and revise the standards, resulting in a new set of ELA mathematic learning standards. So 130 people, they say it like it's this amazing thing, but we're talking about a state with millions of people. 8 million people live in New York City alone. So that 130 is like so minuscule. Do we really want 130 people? Even if you can say, oh, it's this collaborative process. deciding what we teach in our cities across the whole, in our schools across the whole state? Who's really best placed to make those decisions? And then I'm asking all these sort of questions like, okay, so we just had Common Core, so if they did this in 2017, Common Core is just like 2010. So, and they started, like 7 years has barely gone by. And, I know there was a lot of pushback about how it was rolled out and how, especially I think subjects like math, how those were done. But I looked at the standards, and if you actually just read the standards, there's not anything in there. That's what they've been since the beginning. Evidence-based, text analysis, all the key elements. So I'm like, how different could these standards really be? And so, and then I'm like, if it's 2017 when they were developed and now it's 2020, what's their whole timeline, which they have right here. So let's check it out. So they say 2017, they adopted them. Their first phase is they want to raise awareness. Well, I am not aware. I don't know how that whole campaign went, but this is the first I'm hearing from it from a little article in my UFT magazine. All right. And now between last spring and this summer, they want to do professional development. I haven't received any professional development or heard of anything about it. All I know about is my bias training, implicit bias training, and my sexual harassment training, which I don't know if I did that. Oops. And then they want to have it fully implemented by September. So even though they seem to be very aware of how Common Core had some of its downfalls, especially in the rollout, it doesn't seem like they're correcting those issues. This is literally the first I hear. Everywhere I go, it's still, Common Core standards. Common Core standards. Make sure you have, and isn't that what we just remade our ELA tests and all of our regions for, is for those updated Common Core standards? So now we have to remake those tests? It's crazy. And so you can see some more specific timelines right here. And so they're going to start, they rolled it out last year, and already they want to start having the teachers have this test going in their classrooms, and they're going to rate them based on it. It seems unrealistic, and then in 2024, we're going to remake those Regents exams, just like I said. So it's crazy. We just spent all this money redeveloping these tests and redoing this, and all anybody's ever been saying is we're over testing. And so what's the state? No problem, we'll remake you standards, but don't worry, we still got our data in there, because they need to have their control. They need to have their standards so that they can say, you don't have the standards in your lesson and you're not doing it. It's all a control and a power thing, so that they can feel important and like we need them. And in ways of human nature, you're incentivized. Okay, I have this position, so I need to ensure it continues to be a necessary thing in people's lives so that I can continue to have my job and power and influence. And so I don't think that a lot of these people necessarily have personally bad intentions. I just think people are doing what they do. They're taking their power, they're consolidating it, they're making sure that it stays there. But we need to take that power back. All right, there's a couple more things I wanted to talk about in here. And then I'm asking myself, all right, so you can see this whole timeline, it just feels rushed. It feels like I don't even know about this, what's going on. And how do these standards actually change what's going on in my classroom and help serve my students on a daily basis? And so I'm like, all right, well, let's look at the standards. And so I was looking at the standards and I'm like, so how is this different from Common Core? And I didn't exactly have them side by side. So I was like, all right, I got to find something that puts these side by side. And they actually very nicely provide a crosswalk of what the Common Core had versus what they have. And I don't know how much money they spent on this, but I hope it was not a lot, because it is not different at all. All they did was maybe shorten some things or change the formatting of some things. And while they might argue, those are substantive, it gives teachers more freedom, it does this. Teachers are already doing those things. We don't need you and your standards to tell us how to do our things on a daily basis. And now I'm not saying that there's no place for some type of, academia and research and all of that. But the way that they put their fingers down and create a grasp of power and hamper down what our ability is to actually do in the classroom on a daily basis, is the antithesis of what they're claiming that they're trying to do. All right, so let's just look at a couple of these. So over here, we have the 2011 standard, and they want you to cite strong and thorough textual evidence to support analysis of what text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from text. And then it gives something that's a little bit more specific down here about factual, interpretive, evaluative, da-da-da. And then we have the 2017 revision, and it is, cite strong and thorough textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly, implicitly, make logical inferences, develop questions for... So somebody got paid to move some words around on a page. I wonder how long that discussion was. I wonder how much their salary is. It's like, come on, man, what are we doing here? And so I was just looking through, and you can see over and over again, it's maybe just the moving around of a couple words or the altering of a small piece of language or some... There's nothing substantive in these changes at all. And now, of course, they will go through their fact sheet and they'll say, like I said, it gives teachers more decision-making power. We altered from information text to also having, what do they call, fiction text and things like that. And okay, cool, great little changes, but you act like we weren't already doing those things. We do those things. We don't need your standards to tell us what to do. That's not where the change happens. It's so frustrating, right? And I looked at the math ones too, and it's essentially the same thing. Right here, use units as a way to understand problems and guide solutions of multi-step problems. Select quantities to use units in a way to interpret and guide of solutions multi-step problems. Choose and so what they did was they took things on the one side that had semicolons between them, and they added a 1, 2, 3, 4 list like that. Dang, I'm good at word processor. Maybe I could get this job. I could do a little fancy slideshow or something. I'm pretty good at those too. All right, so just right off the bat, I'm pretty tight. I'm pretty heated. I'm like, next generation learning standards, and now we got to get all teachers all this information. All right, who's getting paid what? Right? What politicians? What publishing companies? Oh, it's just... All right, let's keep going. So it said the lack of standard approved curriculum aligned with learning standards. Oh, it's got to be aligned with learning standards. Otherwise, they can't tell you what you're doing wrong, right? It's like, I've never made a lesson that didn't have a learning standard. It's not so much about the learning standard as how you align your objective to your learning activities, to the assessment piece. So this whole, it has to be standard aligned, it's just a misnomer for them to have their power, all right? So we need standard aligned curriculum, because if we're not up to their standards, if we're not all aligned and perfectly walking in line the way they want us to, we must not be doing it right. Our kids must not be learning. The U of T is working closely with the Department of Education and the Principals Union this spring to make sure teachers have both curriculum and professional learning opportunities they need to teach the new state standards. So the U of T, the DOE, the Principals Union, they're going to bring in those curriculum developers. They're all working together to make sure that they all get paid and they all stay in power and they can tell us what to do. Right, got you. So the focus initially is on elementary and middle schools, since students must be prepared for those new state tests. Got to make sure that we don't slip on those test scores, right? Got to make sure we're teaching to that test. Right? Isn't that what we were trying not to do? I mean, that's been the conversation since I've been in education. And yet we come out with new standards, seeing how the failure of the other standards and the complaint about social standardized testing. And what do? We do more of the same, more of the status quo. It's time for disruption, guys. Right? He says, every school needs ELA and math curricula, professional development aligned to the new standards. This has never, ever been done. So we must give them so much money, more dues, more power so they can get it done, because they're the ones to do the job. Starting in February, the U of T will conduct a comprehensive inventory of curricula that schools are currently using. Chapter leaders will report their curriculum used at their schools on a survey in the new online chapter leader community. All right, so they had to develop a survey, time, money, And the goal is to ensure that by September 2020, so that means the start of next school year, even though nobody's ever heard about this, nobody's received any professional development, we're all working on our own thing, trying to already fit to the new test that they just gave us. And yeah, we're going to be ready by September 2020. So then he goes, oh yeah, and another key here, because they can't forget to drop in their language about equality and equity. So we need to make sure that these curricula are appropriately aligned to the culturally responsive, sustaining education framework that we use in New York City schools, because I've received training on that, or like, that's what we do. We respond to the needs of our students who are from a diverse array of backgrounds. I don't need your fancy title above a curriculum to tell me how to do that. I need time, I need space, and I need my classroom fully funded. I need you to stop wasting money on redeveloping standards and pass that money down to the people who can actually make an impact on the lives of these students. He says the days of schools figuring it out on their own are over. And again, it's a nice sounding sentiment, right? We need to have a union, a network of people. And that's why I so value platforms like YouTube, where we can connect, IG, Twitter, because it's us who have the power. And when we come together and we collect that power but again, it's not just the power of all being together. It's also the power of being able to go back as an individual in your classroom and serve your students. So it's got to be both that collective and then that individual. And there has to be a good flow of that. So this idea that the days of school are doing it on their own is over is like, no, we need to come together and have a network. But then, yeah, we have to be able to go back to our school and do it on our own the way that best serves our students. Right? So let's just finish this off. He says, in addition, he said the State Board of Regents has determined that each community school district must have professional development team composed of a majority members chosen by the union. In the end, the administration chooses the curriculum, but we help shape the professional development. And again, it's a nice little quip to end things off on. The administration chooses the curriculum. But didn't you just tell me earlier in this article that you were going to make sure going through taking an inventory and developed an approved list of curriculum aligned to exactly what you deem is important? So how much choice is there really in that? How many of these kind of false promises do they set up year after year after year? Right? And they help shape professional development. Again, I do appreciate the things that the union puts on. They do host some good professional developments, put together some good opportunities for us. But again, what does that mean? Help shape the professional development. It should be teachers within each school shaping their professional developments, and then having networks of nonprofits that they can choose from. Something like New Visions does really great professional development. And then we have the Writing Revolution, we go to their professional developments. That's something my principal brought in and we as a school chose to do and help shape our culture. And there's no way that some person downtown or upstate can really affect and impact change on that school level the way that we can, the way that my principal knows how to, the way that the admin knows how to, the way that our group of teachers who comes together in our steering committee knows how to. So while I do appreciate a lot of those union aspects of teachers coming together and being cohesive, I truly question what the union is doing with all that money and power on a political level when it comes to distributing new curriculum, developing new standards. Why aren't they really defending teachers and really having our perspective out there? We don't want testing. We don't, again, I'm not saying there's no place for any standardized tests, but it's crazy over the top. And all these standards do is reinforce that culture and that environment for our students. And they don't actually change the day-to-day reality of students and teachers. Get rid of all this nonsense, this curriculum for all, this equity for all. All it is talk. It has no feet. Fully fund our classrooms, believe in the power of teachers, and let's go on serving these students the best way that we know we can. We got to get rid of this status quo, all right? So let me know what you think in those comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, definitely press that like button. Share this with other educators. That's the most important thing you can do. We got to keep this conversation going because, again, I'm not against the union as an idea of things that it might do to create cohesion among teachers. But again, we give them so much money and so much power. And what do they do with it at the end of the day to really advocate for the interests of teachers and for the students? Because that's what teachers really want. We want to be able to serve our students, and all they do is put up this red tape and these new initiatives, and they question our expertise. That's really what it is. But it's time for us to take the power back. All right? So keep on disrupting, keep that hope alive, and stay foolish, y'all.